on Running Point. Coach, thank you so much for popping in and getting ready to discuss a football season. It's come right back around.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Coach, let's just start off. I mean, second year, you're going to be at the helm, too. You're going to have a lot of returners on both sides of the ball. What is your outlook going into the season with the guys you got, and what are your expectations going into this 2022 campaign?
Well, it's a good question. We changed the climate last year. I felt like off the field and on the field, we did a lot of things to make sure that these kids were set up for success this year as well. So we got in the weight room, things like that. So I have a lot of high expectations for these kids coming in. I feel like our offense is a little bit going to be, much more high powered here with David back at quarterback and having a second year of something. These guys haven't had a second year of anything in 4 or 5 years with a new head coach every year. So it's nice to be back with these kids. I think they enjoy it, and they definitely give you what you give back. So it's easy to say as long as you're putting in the work, they're going to do it too.
Before we start talking about this season and the prospects and some of the big players that you think are going to show up this year, I want to talk about your evaluation of last season. I know every coaching staff kind of watches the games from the last season and has probably a preseason review on what they can build on. What did you see from last year that you think they can really be built on in this program? And what were some things that you think this team needs to improve on going into your second year as a head coach?
Well, last year we switched what they're used to. They're used to a zone, and offensively they were used to zone, and we switched a little bit more to a gap scheme concept. And I noticed looking back at the film, we were one block, maybe 2 blocks at times away from really springing out some big runs and changing the games up a little bit here. So fixing up those little mistakes, and it seemed to be somebody different every single time. With young guys there, you expect that on the offensive line. So seeing those guys young and still so close to success makes me feel pretty good about offensively. And defensively, you could say the same thing. We had a lot of freshmen back in the secondary. Our D linemen, weren't used to maybe reading a little bit more than they do now. And so I feel like with that second year coming in, looking back at last year, we were a year away from really, I guess, toning up what we needed to tone up.
There's some big names that are returning on this team too. Obviously, Malichi Taylor, one of them. Mike Mazzeros, Danny Mitchell, some big names. What are your thoughts on these names returning? I know you've been pretty high on some of these guys coming back, especially guys like Malichi Taylor on defense.
Yeah, Taylor's call him Kai. Kai's going to play a little bit more on the line this year. He's a technician. There's things that you look at him and you didn't really see it last year too much because I think we put him in a position where it was tough for him. But this year, and he did well, with that. But this year, we're putting him in a position that he can really work on his technique, and he's good at that. So I'm pretty excited with him on the line. Jamal Henderson's going to be a kid to watch this year, I think, for us, both as a running back and we're going to switch him to a linebacker this year. I mean, he flies to the football. He's got a great attitude, and he runs really, really hard. He's a kid that you're definitely going to look at for sure.
Still overall going to be a pretty young team. Who are you going to lean on as vocal and emotional leaders on the field for your team?
They all mix in pretty well with that. And that's something that we worked on last year because last year we didn't have a lot of that vocal. It was a little bit more chipping back and forth than we needed instead of encouraging. And everybody's bought into that. They're encouraging each other now. But David Moore, our quarterback safety this year, he is somebody that they rally around. He's going to be somebody that gets these kids pumped up. When he plays well, the whole team plays well. And when he has a good attitude, the whole team has a good attitude. So David Moore, Jamal Henderson, those two are going to be the guys that we're really going to lean on all 3 phases of the game.
You mentioned David Moore, and I mean, Anthony and I just had this discussion on coaches starting sophomore quarterbacks as time goes along, and we've seen that go on a lot more with coaching staffs. Obviously, David Moore coming back as a junior too. And last year, going into year one, not many coaches expect to go into year one starting a program up, trying to build a program as world beaters. But I think he had some pretty impressive numbers for a sophomore too. How high are you on him coming back for a junior year, and how much do you think that sophomore season is going to pay dividends for him coming into this season?
Yeah, looking back at last year, I wish I would have played him a little bit more starting at the beginning of the season because you know what? This year compared to last year has been night and day. I mean, he's been nothing but great in terms of reads when we're passing the ball. confidence in the huddle, play calling, understanding the offense. He knows where everybody's supposed to be. He tells kids where to move. He is very, very impressive for me going in. And the mechanics aren't great yet. We're working on him with some of his quarterback mechanics. He's growing into his body. He's 6'4", so it's nice to have one of those there. But I am very, very impressed with him, and we're going to be leaning on him quite a bit. But from year 1 to year 2, it's that sophomore year has helped him tremendously with that. And I kept telling him that at the beginning, every time he threw an interception last year, every time something bad happened, I go, that's the only way you're going to learn, and so I think he's learned his lesson on a few of those throws he shouldn't have thrown, and a few of those plays he should have called a little differently. So he's doing a great job.
In the first year, you try to get kids to buy into your program, buy into your philosophy. Now you get a second year with them. How much do you think they've bought in, and how much is this year going to show in dividends to all the stuff that you went through last year?
Going in your first year, you want to change the culture, right? But I always say you can't change the culture your first year. You gotta change the climate, and you could change some of the attitudes, this and that. And we did that year 1. Year 2 is now where we're starting to shape that culture up, and we do a lot more things off the field together. We get those guys, working with each other, not only for football, but for other things too. We have community days, this and that we try to get these kids out together. And I think that's where the year 2 stuff, if they buy into those things off the field, they're going to buy into the stuff on the field. And we've been doing that so far. So they've bought in tremendously this year compared to last, I think.
The way the season starts too, you start with the team you ended with last season in the Valley Christian Eagles. So you open up at home August 19th. Give us a little bit of a preview of this game, what you're expecting from this, and how Campbell's going to need to flood home field on August 19th.
Yeah, it's cool because they use our field for their games too. So it's kind of a home game for both of us, but I always joke that's not their home, it's our home kind of thing. But they're going to be a good football team. Coach Hake is an amazing coach. I know he's going to have those guys ready. There's a few Camel guys on that team, so our kids know those guys. And we're gonna need to be perfect on all 3 phases. Last year, special teams kind of got us out of that game a little bit with a botched punt into a touchdown to make it 8-0. And I think if we clean those things up and we just stay true to what we can be good at with our kids, I think we're going to be coming out victorious.
This community saw a little bit of taste of success in the school system over the last sports season, and they start to get more and more excited. They're more casual fans in Campbell now. Talk about the community for Friday nights and what it's like to see a packed Campbell football stadium, and how much this community really supports this football team.
It's pretty awesome to see. Growing up, I played at Poland, so I got to play here. When it was grass field and the stands were different, and it was no turf or anything, and you got to see it as a player. It was pretty exciting. As a coach, it's great to look back there and kind of see how good of a support system you have, especially those first couple games. We got a little bit of an older group in Campbell too, and when the older group and younger group both come in, it's a pretty packed stadium over here, and I think it's the best stadium in the area. So it's pretty nice to see a packed stadium there, and the support from the community is fantastic. I mean, we have bars and churches and everything here that donate food and donate this and camp gear and stuff like that for our kids. And I think the basketball season helped out a whole bunch with the football season too, with them being so successful. I have a lot of those kids on this team. So they rally around these kids, especially when the kids are excited. It gets back to that old 80s and 90s kind of concept with Camel,
Fred Moots wishing you the best of luck in our comments section. He's one of your big fans.
What is something that Coach King would what's some advice, I guess, that Coach King would give player Andrew King?
Every coach is going to say, you could put in more. I felt like I left it all on the field, but you can always put in more. Mentally, you feel like you can't handle it, but physically you can. So you just got to fight past that mental aspect.
All right, now as we kind of venture into the August months and shifting gears into preparing for week 1, what are some things that you're going to focus on in the last couple of weeks of practice and getting ready for that week 1 game?
We have pretty much our offense and defense kind of things put in that we want. It's gearing up to specialize what we do. We always condense down. I don't want to overload these kids. So we're going to focus on being technicians at what we're good at, making it simple for these guys. And we're going to focus a lot on special teams because, like I said, last year, I feel like special teams was something that we needed a jump start on and we didn't have. So special teams, making sure that we're in the right spot offensively and defensively, and everything will fall into place from there.
The gray side of this MVAC, no doubt, has been a tough conference the last few years. But of course, we know LeBray's lost a bit, Garfield's lost a bit, but we still expect it to be tough. What's your outlook on the conference and the competition levels you expect from it this year?
It's always a big competition. Even when Crestview's down, they're not really down, in my opinion. LeBray, same way. Garfield is always a competitor in the tournament. This is Brookfield's going to be good this year too. There's a lot of them that are going to be good. So even though they're down, I don't feel like they're down. And also, we're one of the smallest schools in this tier, which I love the underdog effect of that. We might only have 35 kids, 38 kids coming out for football, but we're going to play as hard as we can, and we're going to make sure that you remember that you played Camel on a Saturday morning. You're going to remember we played them on Friday night, kind of thing.
All right, Coach, before I let you go, I want to ask what your favorite thing so far has been about coaching these kids, and what makes you so happy that you're coming back for your second year.
These kids are really special. These kids work so hard on and off the field. There's a lot of kids that have to support their families. They go and work after football. They come early or they work early and then come to football. So the hardworking mentality of these kids is what is my favorite part. I love seeing that in young kids today. It's hard to find that. And just translating that into the football aspect too, with everything else on their mind. I find that to be the biggest challenge, but also the biggest reward. So that's my favorite thing.
Coach, we also want to give you the opportunity before we let you go to shout out your assistants and other big names in that Camel Memorial football program that make it go.
Sure. We have Isaiah Flores is going to be a wide receiver corner for us. He's going to be a player. He's going to be a little stud. We have a couple young guys too, Mikey Mazzaros. Offensive line wise, there's a lot of guys back. Jordan Gore, Matt Korzinski, Brandon Applegate. Those are all offensive line guys, and if they're working hard, then we're doing a good job there. Same thing on the defense. A lot of those guys plays defense as well. We got some great kids. Defense, coaching staff wise, I have Coach Rick D'Annunzio. He's my defensive coordinator. He was there with me at Poland as well. He is amazing to have on staff, as well as everybody else. Steve Horvath is a Camel guy. James Schaefer is a Camel guy. Elijah McCaskill. Coach Steve Hunt has coached for years at Hubbard and here. He's all in with these kids and amazing. I have Coach Julia from Latonia helping me out this year too. He's going to be an amazing help, on Friday nights, and just an offensive mind that's great. State championship winner you can't beat. So,
Coach, thank you so much for taking the time to join us, giving us a little bit of a preview of Camel football. We wish you the best of luck, and we know that as the season goes on, we'll talk to you again real soon.
Yeah, thank you guys very much. Anytime you need something, give me a holler.